The Vivo X200 Pro versus the Oppo Find X Pro. Both has the same display size, the same IP rating and even the same chipset. So which do you choose? Well, you'll get your answer in this video. Now starting from the design, on a day-to-day use, the Oppo Find X Pro felt nicer to hold. Now this is due to the texture back glass. And while the Vivo X200 Pro wasn't bad, but the smoother glass back meant that it had the potential to slip off from your hands. Now both were equally great to type and use daily, but when it comes to gaming for long periods, since this Oppo X200 Pro's camera bump was bigger, it was less comfortable to game for long periods compared to the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Now speaking of gaming, more of my gaming tests later, but the good news is that if you're like me who loves to type on the phone on a surface, both does not wobble at all when you're typing the phone on say your table or any other flat surface. So if I really had to choose in this particular category, I would give this to the Oppo Find X8 Pro, where the only competition would be the regular non-Pro X8, as I felt that the boxier design was better. Which I find it weird because all of these Chinese makers seems to always make the non-Pro boxy and have a flat screen, and the Pro is usually curved. Yep, even Huawei tends to do this too. Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now in terms of durability, the Oppo Find X8 Pro comes with a Corning Gorilla Glass 7i and Vivo's X200 Pro has an Armor Glass. Now there's no mention whether or not this is under Corning or not, but using this phone daily, there were no visible scratches or scuffs on the screen, especially since I use both of these phones without a case or even a screen protector. Now both has the same IP68 and IP69 certification too, but one major feature that levels up the Oppo Find X8 Pro is the fact that it has an alert slider and also a dedicated camera shutter button too, where such feature is not available on the Vivo X200 Pro, as they were probably looking towards being a bit more minimal. So if you want more physical quick controls for your phone, then the Oppo Find X8 Pro should be your pick. So design wise, it's a matter of preference. Do you like the more physical controls or do you prefer a more streamlined look? For me, this department, I would go with the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Now both phones feature the same 6.7-inch LTPO AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate and Dolby Vision support. Now the display's colors are vibrant and blacks are really nice and deep, and the peak brightness hits an impressive 4500 nits on both. Now I know that this is a comparison video where I need to help you choose between the both, but honestly, when it comes to the phone screen, both were equally as good. The screens were slightly curved on both, so the experience when it comes to watching videos or just using the phone every day was the same. So I would give it a tie over here, unless one of them was a flatter display, but nope, the screens are same but different. It's like a twin showing up at the party with the same exact outfit where you have no choice to pick. Now for the cameras, which is the most requested comparison. Now I'm not going to dive into the specs and go straight on comparing these images. Now starting from the ultra-wide lenses straight out of the camera, the Vivo's image looks more pleasing with a more vibrant photo. Now one might think that Vivo is bringing up the saturation in post, but to be honest, the image on the Vivo was more accurate in real life, and other than the color accuracy, the dynamic range and sharpness from edge to edge was amazing on both. Now looking at the main lenses, while the vibrancy remained consistent from the ultra-wide lenses to this main lenses, but where you would see more details are on the shadows, and based on this first image, there are more details towards the plant at the bottom of the screen. So the Vivo does better once again over here. Other than that, the dynamic range for the highlights on the photos did look great as seen side by side. Now zoom capability still was very strong on both. Once again, a little better on the X200 Pro, as it was very consistent throughout, even with the X200 Pros having a higher zoom value in this particular focal length of 230mm on the X200 Pro and 225mm on the Find X8 Pro. The details were nicely sharp and maintained on the X200 Pro. But what's very interesting is that if you plan on zooming further, the AI image processing on the Oppo was better as seen in the 675mm shot, where even the colors of the skies were brought back to life on the Oppo as well. Then the story was the same when going towards the 120x zoom on the Oppo, where the details were better on Vivo's Max 100x zoom, but in the expense of Oppo not being able to really stable the shots in this particular zoom in situations compared to the Vivo X200 Pro. So yeah, I found that quite interesting, as Vivo's main marketing campaign was the zoom was the best, right? You know, those campaigns where they have this stage mode to zoom in super close. But as seen in this comparison, the Oppo Find X8 Pro did a better overall job if you're going to the max zoom. Now as for the portrait photography, starting from objects, here's where the X200 Pro regains its quality with better edge detection and also was consistent from the 23mm onwards, other than the mid telephoto focal length as well. But if you're taking a 135mm portrait shot, once again the Oppo Find X8 Pro does better on the edge detection. Then as for human portrait photos, from the skin tones to the edge detection, both performed very well at 23mm focal length. Now what's interesting is that even though I adjusted the aperture to f2.8 manually before taking this particular 48mm picture on the Find X8 Pro, it adjusted the aperture to f4.5, which is not a big deal but something to keep in mind about. But other than that, you can expect both performing very well, especially from an edge detection standpoint. Then selfie photos on the Vivo X200 Pro was a bit wider at 23mm compared to 25mm on the Find X8 Pro. Quality on both was really good, just that the Find X8 Pro was a bit warmer in color, but there's a wider selfie option of 21mm on the Oppo Find X8 Pro, so it's a bit more versatile over here. Now, ultra-wide lenses at night perform well on both, where the lens flare was a bit more prominent on the X200 Pro, but the way both phones handle the highlights and shadow details were great on this particular first image. However, on this second ultra-wide shots, the Oppo Find X8 Pro does better on the details of the littered up area in the middle, even with a lower ISO value than the X200 Pro. Now, there was just a tiny bit details on the highlights for the main lenses on the X200 Pro, where you can almost see the light bulb in the lamppost or even the red traffic lights. But on a typical low light scenario, the main lenses did a very good job indeed. Then nighttime portrait photos for humans at 23mm was equally as good on the edge detection point of view. But in terms of the dynamic range, the X200 Pro was better, as seen on the Le Meridian signage at the back. But the quality was great all the way for each of the focal lengths available on the portrait mode. However, what's interesting is that the details for the portrait mode on objects was a tiny bit better on the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Then the nighttime selfies were great on both, but if I had to choose, I would go with the better skin tones and the contrast on the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Then as for video recording, the Oppo Find X8 Pro records up to 4K 60fps. However, the Vivo X200 Pro can go up to 8K 30fps. Now, starting from the ultra-wide lenses, while the stabilization both was good, but the dynamic range on the X200 Pro was better, as seen at the skies area. Now, it was better when you switch it to the main lenses, but still the highlights on the Vivo and the sharpness on the X200 Pro was better once again, even at 2x zoom. Now, while the image stabilization on the Find X8 Pro was better, albeit a bit wobbly at 10x zoom, but overall the Vivo X200 Pro did way better when it comes to the video quality and the overall stabilization. Then selfie video recording on both was up to 4K 60fps, and the quality and the image stabilization was really great on both, as seen over here. Now, nighttime video on the ultra-wide lenses were very similar, but you start to see perform better on the X200 Pro in terms of the main lenses onwards, in terms of the quality, but stabilization was great on both phones. However, if you're planning on recording selfie videos at night, I personally think that both of them sucks. But yes, as seen in this particular footage, the Vivo X200 Pro does a bit more better over here. But for our vlogging situation using the front cameras, this is how it sounds when it comes to the audio recording and of course the video recording as well. So this is an audio test for me up here in a rooftop. It's not as windy as how it is, but of course you can be the judge based on what you hear on which is better, the Vivo X200 Pro or the Oppo Find X8 Pro. Phew, what a comparison test.
This is fine.
Now, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, a nice big thumbs up would be very much appreciated, and a subscription would be lovely too, as we are on the way towards 200,000 subscribers. 200,000 subscribers here in the channel, so thank you very much in advance. And yes, I'm recovering from losing my voice. Now, software-wise, while both runs on Android 15, I will cut to the chase to tell you that Oppo's ColorOS 15 is surely superior from a feature standpoint. Now, while they almost copied some of the iPhone-like features like the Aqua Dynamics, touch to share live photos, and even official MagSafe-like accessories, it not only makes it appealing from an Android user's perspective, but also probably someone who wants to switch from an iPhone to an Android phone. However, Vivo's FunTouch OS 15 was also great, with great UI UI and overall design, where it felt very smooth, where I didn't experience any issues when I was using the FunTouch OS 15 or even the Color OS 15 when I was using it daily. But where I thought it would be interesting is to compare the AI capabilities of both. So what I did was, I downloaded 2 Taj Mahal pictures online and I tried one famously used feature, which is the AI eraser. Now for the first shot, I tried removing this picture of one person of this ultra wide shot, and while both does a good job at removing this single person, but the X200 Pro did better on the reflection of the person. Then the second test was based on removing more than one person in this particular image, where I used the camera app and just painted all of the people over there, and this time around once again the Vivo X200 Pro did way better. Now I know that this takes several times for you to get it perfect, but it does seem that Vivo's AI works better, especially when using AI to really detect a person or any photo bombers for this particular case. Now, if you want a recap of everything mentioned in this video on a written format, if you prefer to read and not just watch our videos, we do have one at our website at www.adamlobo.tv, where we do have some daily tech news over there too. So link to the website will be down below. So battery life was totally expected, because yes, size does matter over here, as the Vivo X200 Pro 6000 milliamps of battery gave me an average of 7 hours plus of screen on time when I was at 10% battery with dark mode turned on, compared to the Oppo Find X8 Pro doing the best at around 5 hours plus in the same scenario too. Now both phones did give me about more than a day's use, which was great compared to some flagship devices which can't even stay beyond a day. Yes, I'm looking at you, iPhone 16 Pro Max. Then charging speeds though was a totally different story, because the Vivo X200 Pro has a faster 90 watt wire charging compared to 80 watts on the Find X8 Pro, but slower in wireless charging of 30 watts compared to Oppo's 50 watts. So if speed is your priority, then you can choose your poison on which is your preferred charging option. For me, it doesn't really matter, since I use the wired charging more when I'm low in battery, or I just use the wireless charging when I go to sleep. So yeah, I would give this department to the Vivo X200 Pro over here. Now, as mentioned at the beginning of this video, both phones are powered by the same MediaTek Dimensity 9400 chipset. It also has the same RAM variant and also the same UFS 4.0 storage. So did it perform the same, or was it totally different? Well, I did a head-to-head comparison on Genshin Impact. It both ran very well at graphics set to very high and motion blur turned on all the way. Both were super smooth with no stutter or any lag, but in terms of comfort, as mentioned, the huge camera bump at the back of the Vivo X200 Pro didn't make gaming very comfortable for long periods. However, with the case on, it was better in the hands. But all in all, while the gaming performance on both was equally good and did very well, but I would give this department to the Oppo Find X8 Pro because of how comfortable it was gaming for long. So with all of this tests done, you can finally make a purchase decision, but I would like to know which would you pick in the comment section below, and I'll see you over there.